If you have a flight to catch, you just might feel the impact of the government shutdown as it enters its 10th day. The FAA expects nearly 52,000 flights today as we head into a holiday weekend, and we've seen some sporadic delays and cancellations so far. The Trump administration has begun showing a video at 8 airports nationwide, in fact, and in it, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem blames Democrats for the shutdown and its impact on travelers. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve joins us now live from Los Angeles, typically a busy airport there. Chris, good morning. How does the overall national travel picture look today?
Well, something interesting here, Errol. Shortly before the checkpoint opened, a little bit before 4 a.m. local time, there's a large group of people that are waiting. Today, they treated the TSA to a round of applause before the checkpoint opened for those folks coming to work, not knowing when their next full paycheck will come. National air picture today looks a little messy. You got a lot of potential weather disruptions on the East Coast and even in places like Phoenix that are going to see some rain. And on top of that, you have uncertainty that's been injected into basically everyone's travels because of the staffing situation that we're seeing pop up sporadically throughout the air traffic control system. It doesn't look like it's a coordinated or targeted like sick out per se, but you're seeing more sick calls than you would normally see. And so every day, particularly as we get into the afternoon and evening hours, multiple FAA facilities have what are called staffing triggers, where they are short-staffed, basically. And some of those don't result in a whole lot of disruption. And then we've seen others that have been pretty disruptive. If you were trying to go to Nashville on Tuesday, you likely got there a couple of hours late because there just weren't enough air traffic controllers working.
So this is very important because we're going through this government shutdown, and there are a lot of people that are federal employees with different agencies that have been exempted from a furlough. So they technically have to come to work every day, but they're not getting paid for that as of right now. They're going to end up getting back pay once the shutdown is over. But just imagine you having been told to come to work, but you're not getting a paycheck. So what people are doing is they're calling out sick. They're using their PTO. They are finding ways to get around the system that's been telling them that they have to come to work, but not getting a paycheck is unacceptable across the board. As someone that's a civilian government employee and I got furloughed, to be told that you got to come into work every day and not get a paycheck is crazy. So what people are doing is, as you can see here, it's affecting the flights and delays when it comes to the FAA. TSA workers, FAA workers are ultimately saying, okay, I'm gonna just use my PTO. I'm gonna use my sick days, and ultimately I'm gonna get paid for those sick days, but I'm not showing up, traveling, commuting, doing all of those things, and then also not getting a paycheck coming up in about a week.
You've got applause in the early morning hours for people at the TSA area in LA. And now you've got also criticism from the transportation secretary toward air traffic controllers who he says are abusing their sick time and their call out time. He's threatening, in fact, to fire them. Help us understand that.
Yeah, I was thinking the applause were for us, but they weren't. So Secretary Duffy, what he said was... That's what I like to think so.
Right.
But the TSA folks certainly deserve a round of applause, particularly at this hour. But what Secretary Duffy said was basically, if you're found to be violating FAA sick leave policy, there are repercussions for that. And the union acknowledges there are practices and procedures for dealing with abuse of the sick leave policy. Secretary Duffy said if they find out that you're taking advantage or misusing the sick leave policy, that your job could be at risk. And that is certainly a change in the tone of what the secretary has been saying. But you're also seeing these persistent sick calls. And the secretary made the point that on average, FAA staffing issues are responsible for about 5% of flight delays on average. At points this week, they've been responsible for more than 50%. So while delays and cancellations have been sort of within historic norms this week, and the vast majority of flights are leaving on time, the amount of delays because of air traffic control staffing is up. That Nashville example, the airport pointed out nearly 40,000 flyers were inconvenienced because of delays at that airport. Wow. So it's not nothing, even if the vast majority of air traffic controllers are working.
So we have to be honest here. Most people, if they're not getting paid, is not showing up to work. Most people, are not just going to work for free. Now, the argument can be made that hey, you're gonna get a check, you're gonna get back pay, and that's true. However, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, which most Americans are, and you are looking for that next check, which is the 15th of the month, to be able to pay your bills, your credit cards, your electricity bill, and utilities, things like that, how can you justify me showing up to work? First, I have to use expenses to get to work, gas, tolls, you know, maintenance on my car. I got to eat, lunch, whatever daily expenses that looks like for people. I'm using those daily expenses. I'm going to work. I'm not getting paid for it on my next check. So why wouldn't I just use PTO? Now, the leave policy for federal workers is, in my experience, leave policy is very, very lenient from the standpoint that I can take off practically whenever I want, unless there's a project or a task that I need to complete when it comes to my job. But for the most part, there is really no real limitations on how much sick leave or annual leave I can take off as long as I get a supervisor to say that's okay. So federal workers right now having to deal with the fact that they have to come to work and not get paid is a big issue, and it's causing delays when it comes to the airlines, and it's causing issues when it comes to airports and flights in general, right? But this is not just the end of the issue. The longer we continue with this government shutdown, the more this becomes a problem. And I said this on the 1st or the 2nd of October. On the 15th, when people don't get paid, it's going to be a problem.